Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a really hard look at the math behind retirement. Our whole goal here is to demystify what it actually takes to stop working, and we're going to use realistic 2026 data to do it. If you've been sitting there stressing over your portfolio balance, wondering if you're ever going to hit that magical, astronomical number everyone keeps talking about, well, I promise you, there is a massive wave of relief coming your way by the end of our time together today. Okay, let's dive into this. $2 million. It's the universally accepted, honestly terrifying target that financial advisors absolutely insist is required for a comfortable retirement. It's that big, intimidating round number that keeps people awake at night, you know? And it literally keeps folks working years, sometimes decades, longer than they probably need to. It seems like every financial advisor out there is going to tell you the exact same thing. You need $2 million to retire comfortably. The financial industry loves to use these really neat charts and sophisticated models to quietly imply that anything short of this rigid number basically guarantees financial struggle in your old age. It induces a lot of anxiety, doesn't it? It feels like this impossibly high mountain to climb. But today, we're going to deconstruct exactly why that assumption is way more rigid than reality.
So, let's start with Section 1, the $2 million myth, and begin deconstructing this massive target.
The entire foundation of that $2 million target rests on a historical framework known as the 4% rule. Basically, this rule suggests that you can safely withdraw about 4% of your portfolio each year in retirement. The basic math behind the myth is pretty straightforward. 4% of $2 million gives you $80,000 a year to live on. I mean, sounds simple and logical enough, right?
But let's look a little closer at the fine print here. There are some massive, quiet assumptions baked right into that $2 million model. First, it assumes you sell your investments every single year, even during devastating market crashes. It completely ignores Social Security. It assumes you're living a moderately high-cost lifestyle, and it relies on a completely static portfolio value rather than focusing on income growth. What we're really looking at here is a worst-case safety framework. It's absolutely not the reality of the average 2026 retiree.
Which brings us to Section 2. Breaking the 4% rule and fundamentally changing our strategy.
Let's see how changing the foundational investment strategy builds a completely different reality. This is a huge aha moment, so stick with me. The 4% rule is built entirely on chopping down your tree, meaning you're forced to sell off your assets even when the market is totally tanking. But contrast that with a dividend-based strategy. That's like harvesting the fruit without ever harming the tree itself. When a market crash happens, 4% retirees are out there panic selling shares at rock-bottom prices. But dividend investors, they typically just keep receiving stable income. Quality dividend ETFs historically recover their payouts even after those downturns. This structurally and psychologically secures your retirement because you aren't forced to sell your nest egg in a panic.
All right, moving into Section 3, the missing retirement pillars. Let's address some of these blind spots.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it highlights the biggest blind spot of them all, Social Security. Standard 2 million needed calculators almost always ignore it completely. But if we evaluate realistic 2026 estimates, the average individual benefit is hovering around $24,000 a year. An average couple gets between $38,000 and $40,000. And hey, if you delay those benefits to age 70, a couple's combined income can actually exceed $60,000 a year. For a lot of households, Social Security already covers 30 to 70% of their retirement expenses. Once you actually factor that in, the required investment portfolio drops incredibly fast.
The second missing pillar is how we view inflation. Traditional models assume this constant 3% inflation that's just shrinking a fixed portfolio income. But instead of treating your money like a melting block of ice, dividend-focused portfolios often include companies that actually grow their payouts faster than inflation. We're talking long-term dividend growth averaging 6 to 11% annually. If your dividend income outpaces inflation at 6 to 11%, your purchasing power actually increases over time. That completely shatters the old assumption that your portfolio is just a depreciating asset.
Let's look at Section 4, Real-World Retirement Math, focusing on actual outcomes for 2026. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we've been talking about. Let's slow down for a second and really let the relief sink in here, walking through these actual 2026 scenarios. For a frugal single retiree living in a low-cost state, a portfolio of just $300,000 generates about $10,000 in portfolio income. Add in Social Security, and you've got $34,000 a year. That's a totally functional retirement. Now take a couple with $500,000. That generates $55,000 a year total, which closely matches the average middle-class household spending in the U.S. And at $1 million, a couple is looking at $75,000 to $85,000 a year. Notice something? None of these highly comfortable scenarios require $2 million. Not a single one.
But hey, what if you want to retire early, before Social Security even kicks in? Say between age 55 and 62. Well, a $750,000 portfolio generates about $30,000 to $40,000 a year in dividend income. This works beautifully as an early retirement bridge. It provides just enough of a cash buffer to comfortably survive those early years until Social Security eventually swoops in and adds its massive layer of income later on.
That brings us to Section 5, Hidden Wealth Multipliers. Let's talk about the hidden variables.
There are two massive lifestyle variables that standard retirement calculators practically never ask you about, yet they change the entire game. Number one is a paid-off home. Because housing is usually your largest retirement expense, removing a mortgage practically vaporizes a huge chunk of your necessary target number. It effectively replaces $500,000 to $750,000 in required investment capital. Number two is relocating. Moving from a high-cost city to a lower-cost area can easily reduce your expenses by $15,000 to $25,000 a year. That single simple decision completely eliminates the need for $300,000 to $600,000 in portfolio value. It's incredible.
Finally, let's hit Section 6, Finding Your Personal Number. It's time for some empowering equations.
When we bring all of this together for a median dual-income couple, combining dividend income, Social Security, and lower housing costs, a really beautiful pattern emerges. $750,000 plus Social Security plus a paid-off home equals financial independence. That is often the true breakpoint for most people. Not $2 million, frankly, not even close in many cases. So you have to ask yourself, why does $2 million keep getting repeated everywhere you look? Well, because it's a one-size-fits-all marketing number. It is specifically designed to be hyper-safe for extreme high-cost scenarios. It assumes you're living in an expensive city, still paying a mortgage, have absolutely zero flexibility to relocate or using incredibly conservative withdrawal strategies, and have zero dividend income strategy in place. It's mathematically bulletproof for the absolute worst-case scenario, sure, but it is simply not accurate for the average person.
So the crucial takeaway here is that there is no universal retirement number. Your number is simply your spending, plus your income sources, plus your lifestyle choices. Retirement success isn't about hitting some arbitrary jackpot, right? It's about building a system. A reliable system where your income is stable, your expenses are tightly controlled, your risk is diversified, and your lifestyle is totally sustainable. Now, for higher cost lifestyles, yes, maybe $1 to $2 million is appropriate. But for many, many folks, a fraction of that is more than enough.
Which brings us to our final thought today. The question you should be asking yourself isn't, do I have $2 million? Let's change the paradigm completely. The real question is, do I already have enough? Take a moment to really think about your own system, your own expenses, and your own hidden multipliers. You might actually be a lot closer to the finish line than the industry wants you to believe. Keep questioning that standard advice, run your own numbers, and I'll see you in the next explainer.